Okay. There may be one person in here that can hear me, and this is going to be a very hilarious stream. I can't wait to show you all what this looks like. It's hilarious. It might always be a hilarious stream. I've got a whole bad story to go with this stream today, so this might just turn into Uncle Kyle's story time or something, but we'll have something to work on. Yeah. Yeah, thanks. Thankfully Steve is here. Hey, you know what? I do not like professionalism. I really honestly think we should just go straight live, so hold on. We don't need this opening screen. This is Kyle's production today. How do I do this? Bam! Oh, look at that. You can see me on the floor. Hello, everybody. This may be a studio you've never seen before, and I rarely see it ever because it's this room in my house where I keep all my pinball machines. Well, some of them, and it's awfully embarrassing because it's a gigantic mess. Pinmaster, hello. Hey, Fred. So I'm gonna wait for a few more people to show up before I tell the whole story, so everyone can figure out why we are here. Hopefully the sound works okay. I have a microphone in here instead of using like my clip-on microphone, and it's kind of echoey in here, so it might be rough. So I'm gonna keep watching the chat, so I won't just talk. Don't want like a big spiel without checking to see if you all can hear me or not. Hey, Brett. Uncle Kyle's story time. Okay, Fred says it sounds solid, so hopefully we're working okay. Yeah, I had to reset the computer a bit because we were streaming in Milwaukee last week. I wasn't doing so much of the streaming. Emoto and Crystal and Paul were killing it. I was playing silly pinball games with the people in Milwaukee, and it was quite fun. I did try to dethrone Emoto while we were playing Alvin G's head-to-head soccer. It's a two-player battle pinball style game like Joust, or Gottlieb made a soccer game like that too, right? What's the other one? No, I think that's the only three that were ever done. I keep thinking about Capcom's Flipper Football, but that's a single-player game. What happened? Where are you at? Wouldn't you like to know? I'm at my house. I'm going to give the short version of the story now while we wait for people to trickle in a little bit. But I went to go to our studio where we film all this stuff. And I get there and I start unpacking everything, and I open my computer and it's like, oh, there's no internet. Well, that's weird. I go over and look at all the router and the modem, etc. And they're dead. They're just straight dead. So we tried busting out a mobile hotspot because Spectrum couldn't get there on time, and the hotspot was like pitifully slow, like 1990 or like 2002 DSL slow. So we made the quick decision to come over here and stream at my house. So there are so many other games in here that I'd rather show you, but in lieu of like reorganizing this mess and setting everything up, we're gonna just look at F-14 today. Maybe do a little bit of work, and I'll tell you why. Hurricane issues. No. We had the hurricane pass over us yesterday, and it was just like a gentle little rainstorm, so got lucky there. Yeah, so that was my odyssey today. It was frustrating, but through frustration we persevere and make do with what we can. And I have plenty of broken pinball machines. In fact, all three of these games you may or may not be able to see in this strange room in my house are all in a state of disrepair. For whatever reason, all the working ones are in the other room where there's a lot of room to work on them, and all the broken ones are in the room where it's hard to work on them. Don't ask me. So yeah, I think, I'm trying to remember how Emoto does this. If she was actually here, she would just be face palming the entire time. I know that today we were supposed to be working on Hotline. I was really excited to do our first like foray into electromechanical games, but due to the internet issues and me not wanting to dig Grand Prix out, we're just going to look at something easier. But our free shipping code today is PT-Marlin, like the fish that's supposed to be on Hotline. If we were actually doing this game, it would have been fun to come up with some codes. PT Yagov, PT Tomcat. Maybe that'll be our next one. If we ever work on this again, we'll see. I know. No one is hanging. Well, actually, there's 3 cats out there somewhere, and then my wife is out there somewhere also. I have closed myself off both doors so we don't have any invaders, but I might open one door and see if we get a cat. Actually, we might not have this opportunity again, so I'm going to open the door. The last time we streamed at my house was... Oh, that door doesn't want to stay open. How can I fix this? I can put a play field here. That's not going to work. Anyways, I'm not going to worry about it. The last time we streamed at our house, my house is like when we first started doing this, and that's crazy. It's like definitely over a year ago. So, and we had a little bit of cat action, but no cat action today unless one wanders it. Where's Bow and Arrow? Bow and Arrow's at the studio. Bow and Arrow, I need to pull that thing out. It's very sad. I have to do a lot of carpentry on that thing to get it happy. But, I'll rescue it. Anywho, I feel like we should kind of delve in, and then maybe I'll try to stop somewhere later to tell the story of why we are in my living room, or pinball room again. Let's see. I need to remember now how to switch the cameras, so bear with me. Center view. So which one's this? The blue one? So if I turn on this one, you're going to see that. No. Uh-oh. Oh goodness. Oh gosh. Oh, that's weird. Hey, hold on. Oh, this is terrible. Wonder what's going on here. I can't switch the views of the camera, so hold on. I'm gonna have to do a little bit of live switching here. So what if we do... somewhere Emoto is just face palming right now. I feel so bad. Where's my beer? The beer comes later. Why is that upside down? Okay, hold on. Having someone who is like way smarter than you do all this stuff is really, really, really wonderful. But I need to learn how to do this myself because when Emoto is not around, I'm gonna have to do it myself. Give me a sec. Yeah, this man needs help. Steve! Get over here. Okay, so if I close that and then I open up this one, and then for whatever, if I drag this over, okay, this is going to be really wacky for a second. I apologize to everyone. Oh gosh, why is the form factor so strange? What am I doing? Oh, Emoto's going to be so grumpy when she gets back. But I got to make this work somehow. This is kind of awesome. Thanks. I'm glad I have your approval. Okay, so if I make that go away, then I want to try to... There's that camera. But why is the aspect ratio all goofy? I'm glad you guys think it's fun. I'm stressing the heck out right now. I'm not qualified to run a live stream. Okay, so if I move this, then is it control? Oh gosh, my phone just buzzed. It's probably Emoto saying, "What are you doing?" No, it's not. Give me 1 sec, I'm so sorry. Oh gosh. Okay, this is going to be awkward because I think it's set to a resolution that doesn't 100% fit this square. So We're just gonna make it work. I am so sorry. Hi, Daniel. Poor Emoto. I feel so bad. Okay, what do we have? That's my hand. This should be almost happening. Let me point it at something and see if it's kind of centered. Yeah, that'll do. A little bit of it's cut off, but I'll figure that out later. I'm scared to change the resolution this camera's outputting on during a live stream, because if it tanks the entire stream, then we're done. But we're not going to do it that way. So someone said lower left display. Which one are you? Okay, here's actually, let's talk about this first. Let's talk about F-14 and we'll jump into that display question, because F-14 has two different displays actually. F-14, I think this game was like, what, 1987 or something, a Steve Ritchie classic. This was a very, 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 very well received pinball game. I think this game came after High Speed. F-14 has the classic, or kind of the trope that Steve Ritchie invented. Lock your balls, start the multi-ball, and then hit the jackpot. High Speed was the first game to do something like that. So F-14 follows that up with a similarly intensive light show like F-14 had. It has 4 flippers instead of just 3. And instead of having 1 dome, it's got 3. So this is, it's like everything about High Speed just on steroids. F-14 is one of my favorite games. Yeah, they made a lot of them. It was so well received. Any game that they made more than 5 digits of is a good game. I think they made like 14,000 or something of these, almost as many as they made of Twilight Zone. Anywho, this is a game that you see a lot. This game used to be a very common, like introductory, like first pinball game. If someone was looking for their first game, these things were a dime a dozen and they cost nothing. Nowadays, I'm not exactly sure how much these things cost anymore, but it's not an entry pin that people are really looking for anymore. And they seem to be going into lovers, the people that love the game's hands, as opposed to I just want a pinball game. That being said, let me look at the chat really quick. 3 times the domes. This F-14 is quite nice, Daniel, but it needs a little bit of love. So that being said, F-14, they made a ton of them. And the early F-14s, this is a later F-14, the way you can tell that is you only have 4 displays. Early F-14s would actually have a 5th display at the bottom of the display panel here, which was a dedicated credit match display. Williams quickly realized that this display was, it was used in 2 games. It was used in Millionaire, which was the game that I think came right before this on the production line. In this game, and they quickly realized, this is kind of expensive and kind of dumb. Why do we need a dedicated credit match when we can just, using software, change it? So instead of having your credit match always in one spot, if you're playing 1, 2, or 3, if you're playing a 4-player game, they would your scores would show, but the credit match would always be in a window where the current player wasn't, right? So if you went to player 4, maybe the credit match would switch over to here. I don't remember how it actually does it, but there are 2 different F-14 displays. That is one thing to consider when buying them. The other display is very, very rare. You don't see too many of them. I mean, they made a good amount of Millionaires, and again, a lot of those early displays went into the first, even if the first half of this production run, that's still over 10,000 games. But for whatever reason, I see a lot more of these. We make our pin score displays. We will be re-releasing the early version F-14 and Millionaire display soon. Soon, quotation marks, trademark soon, eventually. But for now, this is the display that is most common and easily available. Let's take a look at the game. Also, let's look in the back box, etc. The reason I am working on this game, it belongs to my friend Josh, who is the proprietor of Transmission Arcade here in Columbia, and he bought this thing from a collector. Someone drilled out the top lock, but it's really, really tight. So let's see if Kyle can jam the back glass open. He bought this from someone who loved it, but the thing is like games that are in someone's house very quickly die when they go into an arcade. This game is not dead. I don't want this game to die. So I requested we remove the game from the arcade so we could do a little bit of work on it to make sure that it will be a solid staple of the arcade going forward. F-14 is a System 11A game, I believe. The revisions of the board design are hard for me to remember, but it's easy to remember the last one at least. And the first one. But the earlier boards, we've talked about this before. The earlier boards, this is part of the sound section up here. The earlier boards still used this part of the sound section. So a lot of the times, these early games would use both computers, right? So here's your soundboard. Does this come through? It's kind of dark. I'm sorry, there's not great lighting in here, and I didn't have time to set up a light. You've got your sound section on the computer here, and most of the time the sound section on the computer runs the sounds, the explosions, and the drones, and the sounds that are called up. But the separate audio board will run the music and the speech. And that is exactly what these ROMs say, so I was right. The longer that they used this system, they realized that this audio system was not good enough. So these soundboards changed many times. There's many revisions of these soundboards up into the point where like the last couple games, like your Radicals and your roller games, that era of game, the System 11C computer was devoid of any of these components. They just stopped stuffing them at all because all of the audio system was up here. So what does that mean? You can use older computers in newer games, but you can't use newer computers in older games. I can't take a computer from my roller games and shove it in here and expect it to work because none of this is here. Don't take that as like absolute gospel because there are intricacies to that statement. But yeah, this game this is very clean back here actually. I see a couple things like, we're going to want to change out the filter capacitor here for the 12 volt line. I mean, anything that involves 12 volts or turns into 5 volts we'll want to change, even though it's working okay still. Again, these are things we want to do to prolong the life of the game. I'm hoping I'm not spieling and everyone's like, we can't hear you. Oh, hey everybody. Sorry, I'm looking at the chat now. It looks cattywampus. I think you're wrong. Why would collector's games die quicker on location? It's not the fact that it's a collector's game so much, but it's more, this game works at a level where I can turn it on for 2 hours every week and play the pinball machine, as opposed to a game that is left on for 16 hours a day, being constantly pummeled by John Q. Public instead of loving pinball owner guy, right? Games get treated differently by people on location than they do in your pinball room. And the games in your pinball room, I mean, shucks, there are weeks when I do not play any of my pinball games. They can go 2-3 weeks sitting, right? They don't get used much, but just being on starts to degrade these 30-plus-year-old, devices. This power supply worked, and it may continue working for a long time, but we want to go in and make sure that it will not break, right? Having a game broken in an arcade is bad. You're not making money. That thing is not earning its keep. We want to make sure nothing breaks so people can enjoy them and we can reap the rewards of people playing our games. Thank you. I'm going to stop worrying. You can hear me, great. So, going back really quick before I keep spieling on, someone said lower left display. If only one display is not working, there is a chance that you could have an outgas display and it is dying. That being said, you do want to check all the data connections coming in. I don't remember the difference where Williams routed the data for these 4 displays versus a 5 display panel, but like someone else in the chat said, start with the ribbon cable. That's an easy thing. Unplug it a few times, replug it back in, make sure you're not off a row, and see if you can break the crud that might be between the pin and the ribbon cable. And if it suddenly starts working better when you wiggle it or plug it back in a few times, that might be the suspect. But it could very well be that you have a one piece of glass gassing out. On this display, there are 4 separate tubes soldered into the board. So if only one is absolutely not responding, you could have a bad tube, which is bad. But thankfully, if it is the newer style display, you can replace it with a pin score. Random pin score display question for Kyle. Do any of the ones you currently sell work in Zachariah games? No, unfortunately. That would be a wonderful advent, which maybe we can try doing once we get our current line of pin scores redesigned. That is something that is going to be worked on this year. So hopefully we can add another one in, because the Zachariahs are probably about getting to that point where they need to be replaced. So. Hello Nolan. Thanks for hanging out with me in my front room. Anyways, back to this. Just to quickly identify some of these other boards. I don't know what this relay board is for, what it actually drives, but it might. I think it drives the relay. So, the motor for the beacon. What it will do is, instead of having a transistor one of these transistors take the brunt of driving a very intensive device like a motor, the way that these relays work is this this transistor here will instead drive a very small, easy to run coil right inside of this relay. When this relay changes states and the relay clicks into the other set of switches, those switches drive the motor, which is one way you can drive an intensive device with a very semi-weak transistor, like a tip 102. That's something like maybe you, Ty, might have had happened on your haunted house. Gottlieb drove the up kicker for a haunted house off of a standard, I don't remember if it was a tip 102 or if it was one of the 2N3055s or whatever the fat cans were. But if it doesn't make it the first time, the ball shoots up and then it comes back down. And if it doesn't make it 2 or 3 more times, that thing's kicking a lot, and that cooks the transistor. One thing I always do, and I use these boards too, usually burnt up ones that I fix, take them out of customers' games, is you just put you make that transistor run this relay, which will then run that coil to shoot the ball up. It's a really, really good modification on those Gottlieb games. Anyways, we've got our flipper power supply here. Williams would just take in AC voltage, rectify it, fuse it, filter it, and blah. You've got voltages for your flippers. This board is relatively clean. It is not leaking. I don't remember, but I think on these early System 11 boards you cannot use a Ramtron, the RAM, NV RAMs that I like to stock. Because they're simple and used in most games, but there are solutions to replace this RAM. I think it's a 6116. It would be a good idea to put a Ramtron in this thing, or I'm sorry, an NV RAM. For now, I think we might just keep batteries in it, but since it belongs to people who care, we will not forget about them. We will probably remote them. We'll see. I might do the work on the board, but I kind of want to get this back in the arcade, so we'll see. What else do we have? There's not much interesting in here. The display can go back in. Let's look at the underside of the playfield really quick. There's nothing too crazy in this game. Hold on, I need both hands. There's a lot of wire forms. I think that was something that started to get cheaper. The old story about the thermoformed ramps and space shuttle being one of the things that saved pinball. And we do have a thermoformed ramp here, but wireform ramps also became a popular and neat looking thing in games, and I'm sure they
are not too expensive to manufacture once you set up the tool. But in typical Steve Ritchie fashion, I mean, this game is brutally fast. It's intense, in your face. It's got an awesome soundtrack. The kickback is like everyone's least favorite thing. When you get the ball up in here, there's just a coil that shoots it straight back at you, which is fun, I think. But yeah, let's open it up, and then I'll look at the questions again, too. Let me take the balls out. Yeah, Daniel says Zechariah displays rarely go bad, and for whatever reason they don't. I don't remember, but I think they ran them on a much lower voltage than Bally Williams did. Yeah, it's possible, and the way to really test it, Mike, would be to try and get another working display and swap it in. If you have another Williams games that use this display, or you have a friend that has a pin score or something, ask if you can borrow it, and if it starts to work, at least then you can narrow down, like, yeah, the problem is with this display. There is one common thing on these System 11 computers is when they do start to corrode, right? Here's our ribbon cable that feeds some data to the display. I think what is it? You've got your voltages here, you've got like segment data, strobe data, I think on these two wires, and then you've got BCD, binary coded decimal data going in here, and then you've got another data input here. You generally don't have problems with these things. You always have problems here. One of the reasons is when these guys start to corrode, you get lots of nasty corrosion going up here into these resistor packs. And when these resistor packs start to corrode, these all lead to these outputs here. The signal for a lot of the display stuff comes from this PIA. So if you have any corrosion damage on your board, also look at that first. If this PIA is damaged, if these resistors are damaged in any way, you could be losing some signal. But if you have a clean board, disregard that. Before we lift it up, let's look at other common F-14 problems. They made a ton of these things, and they all got played to hell. There's a lot of inserts on this game. And for whatever reason, these things like to lift a lot. Most of these games did have Mylar put down, which saved almost all of them. Mylar is wonderful. But what would happen is, see right here, you've got it right here a lot. This insert here is starting to poke up. It's starting to press out of the wood. And I don't know why, but it is really prevalent on this game. Maybe it's really the shape of this insert. But this is a really common thing here, is you'll start having insert pressing up and starting to peel the Mylar back. It's very difficult to fix this. To fix this, to do it very thoroughly, you need to work from the top. But removing the Mylar is scary, and I don't recommend it. So this is something you kind of just have to live with without removing the Mylar, right? I have noticed when people have insisted that I remove Mylars from their F-14s to either put a new Mylar on or do an intensive repair, a lot of the time the silk screening on a lot of these things just comes straight off. And I don't know what it is about this game. It could be something where they needed to rush these things into production, or not rush them, but they needed to keep production up. So maybe Churchill wasn't building all of these playfields. Maybe they had another manufacturer doing them, and some of them just didn't catch. This one's not so bad though, because there's only one that's really bad. I've seen plenty of F-14s where you've got like a whole side starting to kick up, and these kill icons starting to pick up too. So this one might be livable. I don't remember it causing a lot of issue in gameplay. So, I mean, these are also things that, look how lazy this is. No one's ever replaced this flipper. Well, actually someone has replaced it a long time ago because it doesn't have a Williams logo on it, but it's like, this one's a giant pain to take out because you have to remove all of the ramps to get it up. But come on, don't be lazy. This game's gonna get new flippers because it looks ugly. Let me check the chat again now. I'm gonna try not to
break the fourth wall so you can't see this janky setup behind my back. Just do it. You'll save. It'll be really awesome if you just do it, Ty. It's a fun mod. The kickback that shoots right down the middle. Yeah, this game is high speed, but just twice as much. It's exactly what it is. Okay, let's lift this sucker up really quick. Now, of course, I can't lift it up with one hand because the shooter. Okay, here's something fun. You ever have a pinball you can't lift up because the shooter rod is in the way? Look at your barrel spring. This thing is super compressed. So if it was a nice strong barrel spring, the shooter rod would be sticking back far enough for you to be able to lift it up without two hands. So now I get to put this on the floor. So enjoy the floor for a second. Oh. That's my biggest pet peeve in pinball. I love it when people are like, oh, I've got this perfectly restored this or whatever game, and then you get there and they've got like the world's rustiest or most compressed barrel spring ever. And you're like, lose points. Let's see. So this is F-14. This was a new thing for Williams, starting to use circuit boards to plant lamps instead of individual lamp sockets. Unfortunately, for Williams, they didn't really think about putting connectors on them. So to remove this board is a gigantic pain in the butt because everything solders straight to it. That's fine for boards like these, for these resistor boards for the flash lamps, etc. But that, I don't know, it's just a pain. But again, it's engineering experience. You learn as you continue building. These boards here are all the flashers run on solenoid voltage, so and this game uses a lot of flashers. This is here to, oh, there's a broken one. Huh, the cement is also like melting away on this one. Nasty. That is there to just reduce the overall oomph going to the flasher itself. So these are kind of important. I see a lot of people taking these out when they put LEDs in, which is fine also, but that's what those are there for. You've got all sorts of these snubber relays here. I believe these snubber relays are also for driving things that stay on for a long time. I don't remember, so I don't want to say what they're for until I look at a schematic, but there's a lot going on in this game. You've got a big bill of material. There's a lot of coils, there's a lot of lamp sockets, there's a lot of everything. You see that a lot with early Steve Ritchie games. They definitely gave him a big bill of material to build a game. The one thing that I really hate about this game, especially, and I learned this mostly on a free play location. So this advice mostly comes from a free play environment, but it's also kind of pertinent. You've got two coils here that drive a diverter arm to send the balls to. They drive these diverter arms here. If those come through, and it's kind of dark. Let me turn that light up. These diverter arms here, and they send them down to these respective wire forms. In a free play location, a lot of people will start a game, play a few balls, and then walk away, which is annoying. And in certain instances on this game, these things can just lock on and stay on, and they burn up all the time. But usually what happens is this thing starts to burn up, and once this thing starts to burn up, the transistor on the board also burns up. So it's just a gigantic pain in the butt. One thing I will be doing is fusing these things. I'd rather have a fuse pop than have to do that job. It is not fun. So I'll be working on that. Otherwise, it's actually really clean under here. There's not a lot of hacks. I don't know if this is factory or not, but there's all the tape around all of these switches. I can imagine that. I don't know. I guess I haven't seen enough. I've seen it on games before, so I'm wondering if it was an operator mod or if it is something they did factory. I'm not sure. If anyone can tell me, that would be great. But yeah, that's F-14. It's pretty crazy. These flippers are all old. Someone hasn't replaced these things for quite some time. You can usually tell a newer flipper crank by the
the captive washer, so you only need one tool to get these things on or off. They're also using these old blue links. We'll definitely want to replace those things just to make sure it's really happy in an arcade. But yeah, that's F-14. We'll continue looking at it in a second, but I feel like I haven't looked at the chat in a minute. Hello. Did he freeze? I don't know, did I? The barrel spring is tiny. It's weird. Yeah, we're at my house. Thanks, Spectrum. Let's look at something here too, just to let people, or like to explain something to people that I can't 100% articulate perfectly, but let's talk about coils. There's a real, anyone who's opened up a Williams game has seen this number before. That's a lot of light. AE, or just A23800. It's a very, very common Williams coil. They used it for a lot of things, and actually, hilariously, they kind of used it for everything in this game. But you can see that there's a lot of designations, right? We've got a A23800-03, A23800-11. What do those mean? I don't know 100% off the top of my head, but what I can tell you, some things that I do know, it's all the same coil. It's just designations on which ones should be used in a certain bill of material. Let's look at these here, for example. These are 26 1500s, so it's not a great example, but you know, you've got these -01s, there's probably an A26 1500, then there's an A26 1500-01. The 01 could signify a total different layout. You know, AL, that generally stands for the bobbin size. So the bobbin is the actual piece that the coil is wound around. So AL could signify that, okay, we've got, it's an A size bobbin. The lugs are going to be situated on the left side of the bobbin. And 01 means that it's got a diode. Or 01 means it's got a diode on the flat side or something like that. You know, in my toolbox, I just have a bazillion 23800s, right? Or in my, you know, my collection of parts. And it's up to me to install things certain ways. So maybe your A23800-02 or 01, that could just be, it's the exact same thing, but it's got the diode on this side of the bobbin. It could also mean that maybe the diode is faced the other way, because whatever reason the way that the wire harness is laid, it's much easier to put this wire here as opposed to here. So you've got many different coil numbers, where at the end of the day, like there's, it's kind of the same coil over and over again. There's just many factors that can change how it needs to be manufactured for easier assembly on an assembly line. So remember, these things are built on an assembly line like a car. It's nice to think of, like, professional pinball craftsmen sitting there with their hand-me-down tools, painstakingly putting these things together. But no, they were built on an assembly line by, workers that clocked in and clocked out. So to simplify things was definitely the way they needed to do it. It makes business easier, I guess. I don't know if that made any sense. I'm probably also giving people all sorts of headaches from moving this camera all over. Yeah, or the coil sleeve, right? Okay, so you could have a 23800 that is also like a kickback here. We can't really see it, but the way the kickback sits is you've got a bell sleeve. So you've got a coil sleeve that protrudes here, and it also protrudes here, and it only has one flange, right? I'm sure lots of people have seen these before. But look, it's a 23800-13. So the -13 could be, it needed to come with this coil sleeve, right? So there are many different things that those dashes stand for. And if APB Enterprises was in here, he could probably give us the entire run through right now, but he's not here. What else is going on with this game? We've got a manual. That's great. It's missing some pages and the back cover, but whatever. We've got the screw for the key just sitting on the speaker. I'm gonna knock Josh points for that. Bad boy. And are there any goodies back here? Ah, there are. There's a cement resistor and some flashers and washers, etc. And a transmission arcade token and more flashers. There's always goodies in the back of the game. Let's put this thing down. This game does work, and it works just fine, but we want to make it work better. That's the goal, or that's my goal at least in the next couple days. Or weeks. I don't want to say days, because then Josh will hold me to it. I'm car sick. I'm sorry. Adjust failure. What are you trying to adjust? Let's see. I think the batteries are dead. That's generally what happens when you get an adjust failure. Let's run it through some tests really quick, actually, because I think I just saw a dead segment on the display. Nope, I was wrong. Oh yeah, that's another thing. This game uses alphanumeric segments on the top and only numerical segments on the bottom. That way the game can talk to you. The next couple games after this, they started using alphanumeric on both the top and the bottom, so it can talk to you more. But yeah, that's one thing that is unique to this middle era, early or later 80s games, but not like, you know, the last couple System 11s. So, thanks for the bits. This is not my game. This is my friend's game, and I'm just trying to make it work better for him. But yeah, I'm pretty sure it works. Actually, I guess we should test that. I should make sure that everything kind of does halfway function before I start actually tearing it apart. That is the challenge. I always like it when people give me broken games, because when it's broken, the goal is to fix it and then make it better. This game works. We just need to find the deficiencies now and make them better. I really like that this game does use incandescent bulbs throughout the entire feature lamp system underneath. I really like the light show, but we will be changing the back box to LEDs. We do not want to burn out the... Yeah, I got this screaming at me. Let's turn this down. We don't want the general illumination connector burning up, and we also do not want the lights to just stay hot. In an environment where games need to be on all the time, it only makes sense to put LEDs in the general illumination. The playfield general illumination has been done in some cool white LEDs. I think I'm going to swap those over to some warm whites. I think it looks a lot better that way. Nice, we've got action. So that's good. I'm glad that that works. That is one thing that goes wrong all the time. And actually, you know what? We did not give that enough love when I had that open. So let's open that up again and take a look and see how it works. Maybe we can catch it if I'm fast enough. So you've got one motor that drives a set of belts, which turns each of the beacons. So there is a light in there. I think it's a 12-volt light that gets held on, you know, it's just on throughout the entire thing. In fact, one of the functions of this relay, you know, you've got your drive signals, and then you've also got, I think that's the wire for the lamp right there, and that one's for like driving the motor or something. So you've got, it kind of does everything, which is kind of neat. The relay turns on, motors go, lights turn on. But it turns these clamshell looking things here, you know, just like a normal cop car siren or whatever. But one motor drives two belts, which turns this around, and it's super cool. It's pretty elegant. Let's figure out how to put this camera, so maybe we can flip and look at some of the functions of the game before we take it apart. And maybe, since everyone's here now, I should also give the explanation again as to why we're at my house. So we went to Milwaukee last week, and I was kind of nervous because we messed with the computer to do some streaming in a hotel, which was wonderful. Their internet was so fast. And I was like, I'm going to get there early to make sure I get all the cameras working and get microphones, because we always have sound problems. I'm going to get it all working. It's going to be great.
and I get to the studio we do this at, and one problem I didn't account for was internet. The internet died. Thanks, Spectrum. So quickly I had to confer with Steve and figure out, it's like, okay, what are we gonna do? Oh, try the mobile hotspot. So we tried the mobile hotspot, and we got like 4 megabits down and like 1.9 up. It was just like, yeah, that ain't happening. So we're just like, well, we don't want to miss a stream. I want to be here, so let's just go to my house. So I quickly drove over to my house and pulled the easiest game to get to out, and that's why we're here. So thank you for joining with us. Yagov. Nuclear dome. Maybe. I don't know if this dome has like I think it has like a sticker in it to keep it from being like super, super bright. But it would be nice to get a nuclear dome. It would make the game pop and look really good, but that might be in the things we do later. Right now the goal is just to keep it working really nice, because this game lives in an arcade, and we want the game to work well for everyone who pays to play the game. The cosmetic and more vain things, maybe we can fit that in the budget later, as we continue working through all of the broken games or games that need love. They're 28 volts. Okay. Yeah, good point. Yeah, they're 28 volts because I think they run on solenoid voltage actually. So the low power solenoids run on about 25 volts, and the higher power solenoids in these games, which I think is only the flippers, run at 40 something, 50. I appreciate you not calling the stream off. Wow. Well, thank you. You're the reason we did this, Nolan. So thanks for being here. Do I have a blue book? No. I don't think so. Maybe. I have a book of pinball notes in here somewhere, but I can't find it. Anyways, let's put this game up really quick. I mean, I suppose we're not married to F-14. It's only 3:52. We can mess around with this a teeny bit, and we could just jump over and look at Twilight Zone really quick. Twilight Zone is a game that I'd really like to do on stream, but we don't really stream from my house for a few reasons. Maybe when this room's cleaned up, we might be able to. But my Twilight Zone is having an issue. One of the magnets on the battle or the mini playfield does not work, and I'm pretty sure that we've lost voltage on one section of low-powered coils. So we need to figure out what's going on. I loaned it to one of my coworkers, and he said, "Oh well, it's broken, so I'm just gonna bring it back." And I was like, fine. I need to add credits if I want to play. This is kind of fun. So this is an awful, I hate these doors, but this is a Coinco door. This is a really common Williams 80s door, and I think Data East used Coinco for a while. They're just kind of flimsy. I think they're really easy to replace parts if they ever go bad, but they're just flimsy. I do like the coin covers though, or the coin switch covers, because they have this awesome little fin. You can push that fin down, and that fin actually actuates the switch. So you don't need to, bring your finger up in there and start trying to push down on the credit lever or bend anything. That was a real common thing for a while, is people mangling these switches, and then they don't take coins anymore. But for everything I hate about you, Coinco, thanks for that cool little fin. Now I think I can start again. Yeah? It does work. I don't think there's going to be a lot of work to this other than like board work and swapping out parts that bother me. Like I said, the goal is I want to make this thing like as bulletproof as possible, so I never need to touch it again. I like it when I go in for my weekly service at the arcade and I literally do nothing but drink a beer and say, alright, my work here is done. Let's see. So we have that work. The kickback is totally fine. You've got the lock on up here, which will send the ball up into the lock. Wow. That works.
lock the ball. Let's try the kickback really quick, because that's important. Kickback is good. The only other coil I can think of is an eject coil up here. And you might not have been able to hear it, but I did hear this. It served me a ball. You see that? How that coil is on now? And it'll sit like that for a long time, and that can burn the coil out really easy. So if you keep the ball in here, it might stay on indefinitely. No, it's programmed once the switch leaves the shooter lane to turn the coil on, because it thinks the ball is on its way, so it can burn. Anyways, leaving it on for a really long time like that, just in a free play environment, can burn those suckers up. Otherwise, I mean, it seems like everything else works okay. But the goal is not to discount it, right? I can sit here and be like, oh, this will be easy, but you know, who knows how many of these things are loose, right? We always want to be tightening our posts so we're not breaking T-nuts or breaking posts, etc. It's dirty. The rubbers are really bad. They need to be cleaned, or not cleaned, rather. They need to be replaced. There's a lot to do. And that kind of stuff takes a lot of time, especially on this game. This is not a super easy game to take apart, but it does come apart quick. Once you start loosening up these wire forms and taking these plastics off, once you get the habit trails off, the game's basically naked. But it takes time. And this is a game that I don't like shopping out, because usually your normal F-14 is just a pile. It's dirty, it's ridden hard and put away wet, and they're awful. This one is pretty nice, so we're lucky. We've got a burnt up pop bumper cap here too. Do you see that bubble in the pop bumper cap from the light? Definitely want to put a nice LED in there so we don't have that happen again. Okay, I've been talking for a long time. Any questions? Drop me an email sometime. Yeah, I'd love to. We should email more. I like talking to you on Discord though. Everyone should join our Discord. We talk about all sorts of great stuff. Future proof, yes. I'll show you Keeny Cowboy. I'll pull that out in a second. Yeah, Twilight Zone is definitely one of those games. Twilight Zone definitely exceeded budget. They took things out of Twilight Zone because it was so over budget. Yes, it is also off. The sound. It's just noisy in this small room. Let me show you one of my favorite little things. I turned this old Keeny Cowboy playfield into a wall hanger. What way do I need to turn? This is an old pre-flipper, 1930s game with some really neat artwork from a company called Keeny. I just like the Cowboys a lot. They're pretty cool. Just hung some piano wire here, and it used to hang in our old place. It'll hang in here eventually too, once I get the arcade kind of set up. Which, this is so embarrassing because it took me longer to get all of the stuff piled up over here away so we could do this stream, but now I am inspired to actually do this. So in case we do stream here again, it's not extra embarrassing. Let's see. Let's really quick talk about this, just so we can get the discussion going. Spooky Pinball, killing it. With Halloween and Ultraman, they sold out in like 4 hours. That's pretty crazy. I mean, that's great. They sold a lot of money in pinball very quickly. And I think this is like the most ambitious production run that Spooky's ever done. So I think they're ready to meet the challenge. I mean, they've got so many things under their belt. I'm really excited to play both of those games. So, I don't know, did anyone in here perchance order or get a Halloween or an Ultraman? I like Ultraman. Halloween isn't necessarily my favoritist theme, but I think it's great that Charlie got to do something like that. Ultraman would have been the one that I would choose. But no new pinball for me right now. And quickly, I guess we could look at Twilight Zone really quick also. I don't know if we've ever really showed this game much while we let the discussion start. This is my Twilight Zone. I've had Twilight Zone for quite some time. It's dirty, it's well loved, but it plays great. I love this game. This is the game that got me hooked on pinball. It is really clean inside. I got it from the original owner was Rick Stetta, who was a championship pinball player back in the day, in the early 90s, through the mid 90s, I guess. And he decided to sell it. So I picked this up from him. He's owned it for a really long time. It was operated at one point. I mean, I don't care anything about home use only. That doesn't do anything for me, but it's just a very clean game, other than the very standard thing you see on a lot of Williams games from this era, the faded cabinets. Usually every game has one good side. This game kind of is faded on both sides, but it doesn't bother me. You don't play the cabinet. But it's kind of fun. I just really like this game. I'm very happy. I've owned it for a long time. It's never given me problems until I loaned it to a coworker. So if said coworker is listening, no, I'm just kidding. I'm going to come back to see if that spooky discussion has blown up at all and see if anyone ordered them. Whose house I'm going to come to so I can play Halloween. No one. But Obi says, it looks damn good. I agree. I think it does look quite good. Let's open up the back of Twilight Zone. I kind of feel like just talking instead of doing today, because this room is not really set up well to do lots of doing. I apologize if it is harder to hear me now because I'm considerably further away from the microphone, but I will move it if it is harder. I'm just going to set the game up kind of so we can take a look-see really quick. I've learned recently that you need to tell someone about 15 times, you have to tell people about 15 times something until they actually remember what you have told them. So I think it's a good idea, maybe we can go over some WPC again. Or at least poke around and see if we can't see, if we've just got a broken fuse or something, and that is why the magnet voltage is not working. Oh, we've got some chat. The art on Ultraman is really incredible. I agree. Why were you shocked that they went with that title, Steve? I think it's a neat title. I mean, I know that, I know that Charlie really wanted to do Godzilla, so I think being able to, do Ultraman battling the kaiju, that's a good compromise. Okay, yeah, I get you. I understand that. I think it is neat that they did use two games in one. They made two games out of one playfield layout. I think that's a really, really good move for a smaller company like Spooky. They're able to take one design and make it work for a broader audience. Spooky does a good job with really niche stuff, right? They put the boo in boutique pinball, but Halloween is not for everybody. And the people that might not want Halloween might think Ultraman is great, or vice versa. And I think being able to spread that out a little bit is cool. I also think it's neat that they only made like 500 of the Ultramans and 1,000 of the Halloween. So there's I think also there's less people that probably would want Ultraman anywho, but I don't know. I thought it was neat. Recently being in Milwaukee, we didn't get to go visit Spooky, but speaking with some of the people in Wisconsin, I was kind of surprised. I think they're in Benton, Wisconsin, and that's kind of, it's not near, I think it's closer to Madison, which is the capital, but they're the largest employer in that city. They're keeping, that city is, churning out pinball as their number one
I think that's neat. You know, you see a lot of these smaller cities. It's like, oh, Walmart is the biggest employer, but no, here in Benton, Wisconsin, Pinball is the biggest employer, and I think that's really cool. Yeah, probably. I don't know. I wonder about the licensing there, but I'm sure that, you know, I know Charlie is he likes that kind of stuff, so I wouldn't be surprised if he knows the people at B and they work together really well. You want to move there just to work for them, right? And to Wisconsin, the middle of nowhere. Yeah, you know, but sometimes the best stuff comes out of the middle of nowhere. Yeah, I don't know. Next time we head up there, maybe when we go back up there for MGC, we will be able to go visit Spooky, because I would love to go visit Spooky. Talking about hanging out with Ben. Yes, I got to talk with Ben Heck. That was really fun. I remember watching Ben Heck talk about some portable video game thing he did on this TV show called The Screensavers. This might have been like 2003. Does anyone remember that show on Tech TV? I think that I was like watching that a lot when I was in high school, and that got me really curious in electronics and like not being afraid to poke around, and that's how I started fixing like, you know, guitar amps and stuff like that. So it's kind of Ben Heck's fault. I told him this, that I got into electronics. And then we drank beer after I said that, so it was fine. With Leo Laporte, yeah. I've actually met that guy. They filmed The Screensavers in San Francisco, so I talked to those guys. James is here, yes. James videoed me talking with Ben Heck. Ben Heck was fun. We didn't really have we could talk about pinball forever, but I like talking to people that like pinball about their hobbies that they have that aren't just pinball. And he schooled me on cheese curds. I really can't wait to come up and get some cheese curds. But he was a really nice, interesting fella, and we drank a lot of Spotted Cow, and it was a good time. You can hear the hum? Oh, that's good. That means that the microphone is kind of working. I should probably turn it off if we're going to go look at Twilight Zone. I love cheese. I could talk about cheese forever. Okay. In fact, I brought some good cheese from Wisconsin home. Many fine aged cheddars. This is going to need some light. I guess my camera does have a teeny bit of light, so I could utilize that. And then the microphone, I think I'll put it on top of F-14 just so we don't lose the crisp sound of my voice. It's soft, so I can put it on the playfield. Really quick, I guess we could talk about what I understand about the design change moving forward too, right? System 11, the computer, the driver, was all on one board. A board about the size of this driver board on the WPC game, which made it just hard, right? I mean, to get a little bit more power and a little bit more flexibility out of your hardware system, like System 11 was just coming to a point where it was just, you know, you could only add so many things onto that system before it was just, you may as well just design something else. So that's where WPC comes in. In WPC, they have kind of sectionalized things, but also combined things, and it's kind of funny because as they moved the system on, they started to do things that, again, were combining a bunch of stuff onto one board, which may have saved money, but made it more complicated to work on and more of a kind of a pain in the butt. In this system, you have computer. This is the computer. It's the brain. It does all of the thinking and the registering of switches and computing, etc. You've got your driver board. The driver board is also combined with what I guess we could call a power supply. We've got AC voltages coming in, which is then rectified in a few spots to turn it into voltages that make pinball happy. The other circuitry on this thing is we've got, you know, the triacs here. These are the triacs for the general illumination. We've got fused general illumination lines, one for each line. We've got drive here for your solenoids. There are eight,
there's 8 drives here that have these big, heavy tip 36s, which are better at driving things, so you can pass more current. And then assortment of, I'm not going to do math because I don't remember, other solenoid drivers here. You've got your lamp matrix over here. Up in the top left corner, we've got our Fliptronic board. This board controls the flippers. There's a fuse for each flipper, top left, top right, bottom left. The drivers to drive all of said things. We've got big tip 36s here, which will drive the power windings. And then there's 2 smaller drives for each coil, so one for the hold and one for the power, I think, if I remember it right. Most common things to go bad on this, I mean, it is common for these, the rectifiers. I've replaced a few rectifiers, capacitors go, fuses can get hot and melt these fuse holders. I've replaced those a few times. It's a lot more common on there's only one game that used Fliptronic 1. This is what you call Fliptronic 2. Adam's Family. Adam's Family, you have to work on them all the time because they don't have redundant diodes. This system does have redundant diodes, so if the diode on the flipper coil breaks off, it will not destroy everything up here like Adam's Family does. Next to it, we have our dot matrix board. I'm sorry, this is the soundboard. This is a pre-DCS soundboard, so this is used on everything up until Indiana Jones. Chris Granner, the guy that did the sound in music on this game, and also F-14, says that this is like the most disappointing project he'd ever worked on. And you think about it, it's like Twilight Zone. How could that be the most disappointing project you've worked on? And it's just because this game was designed to use that DCS soundboard. And he just said, well, if you could only hear what it was supposed to sound like, you'd understand what I mean. And that just makes me so like, I only imagine. I think they ran into delays, right? Like Terminator 2 was technically supposed to be the first dot matrix game, but it ran into some design issues or technical issues in production. So the first game to come out was Gilligan's Island. I guess that's not really the same, but things get shuffled around a little bit, and I think the DCS system was just not ready yet. The DCS sound system is higher fidelity, but can also play more sounds at the same time. I think this can only play 3 or 4 sounds at a time. And that's something that bothers me, like when people put pin sound boards. I'm very musically audibly in tune with things. So when I've been playing Adam's Family or Twilight Zone for a bazillion years, and you put one of those pin sound boards that can play every sound as it needs to, it sounds so weird. When you're used to having some sounds override other sounds and they turn on and off at the same time. That's just me being neurotic. But anyways, next to it, we've got our dot matrix board. This board takes voltages and turns them into usable voltages for our dot matrix display here. And it also does all sorts of decoding, etc., to put out all of the wonderful images on to our dot matrix display. Twilight Zone is such a insane game that they ran out of solenoid drives. So this is I guess we could call it a solenoid expander board. It will drive 8 more solenoids since there is just so much going on this game. And that always kind of surprised me. I get it, you give Pat Lawler a blank check after he made the best-selling, best pinball game of all time, but you just designed a brand new system, and you're already exceeding its capacity for solenoids. You have to put a solenoid expander on there. I always wonder why they stuck with that amount of solenoids. I think this is just a rare exception because there's not many other games that use a solenoid expander. Yeah, I'm gonna come check the chat now again because I'm afraid it's just all saying, we couldn't hear a single thing you said, the microphone's too far away. Oh, where were we? Oh gosh, I missed a lot. Cheese. Tech TV was great. Ben is epic. Yeah, so really quick about Ben. Ben brought this really neat thing to MGC too. Oh, sorry. This mic's really close. Maybe it's clipping now.
Ben brought this thing that plugged into an NES, and it took 3 controllers, so there's 3 people playing, and then there was a box, and then it plugged into the NES. And what it did was it switched the controller input every like 15 to 20 seconds. So you'd have 3 people playing Contra, right? And like one was jump, one person was only shooting, and one person was only moving. And his device would change that up every 20 seconds. So if I was shooting a second ago, the guy next to me might now be shooting and I might be moving, and it was really crazy. So he's evil. WPC on Doctor Who. That's a fun game to learn WPC on because it's pretty straightforward. It's just the elevator that can get a little complicated. Yeah, you're right. I think Star Trek Next Generation ran out of switches. So there's just one switch that's not on the Matrix. I think it's the spinner. Nolan says, you know how to test if it tips 36 is good. The best way to test, and I don't memorize this stuff because it's easy to just do on point. Get a good transistor. Take your old transistor out. Take your red lead on your multimeter, put it in diode mode, stick it on the left leg, then stick it in the middle leg, stick it on the right leg, go to the other transistor. Does it do the same thing? Are they open? Does it have a similar resistance reading? If you have things that are off, replace it. At the same time, though, those transistors are so inexpensive that if you've already taken the time just to yank it out, you could just replace it, and if it fixes it, well, good. I guess the downside to that shotgun approach is if there was something like seriously wrong, maybe you would screw up the new transistor. But you'll generally know, right? If a transistor was shorted on, you would have a coil stuck on. So, anyways. Oh gosh, the chat's actually picking up like crazy. Going back, and somebody might have answered this already. The first dot matrix game was actually Checkpoint by Data East, but it used the 16 pixel high dot matrix instead of a 32, which they moved to later. When I said first, I meant talking about Williams, not like as a whole. Para Hoba Mila. Okay, thanks for reaffirming my stupid microphone was. Okay, so did that help, Nolan? Like, were you able to figure it out? Did you just like replace it, or did you actually sit there and like measure them out together? Excellent. Energetic Coach says he's picking up a Lethal Weapon 3. That's one of my favorite games. It's just goofy, and I got to remember why it was one of my favorites when we were in Milwaukee this weekend. They had 2 of them next to each other, and it was really fun. Hey, no problem. I like describing boards. I hope that at least gives you an idea of what's going on. I can't tell you exactly what's going on in most places. My memory is going. But hopefully it's helpful. There are a few more boards underneath this game too, right? We've got, whatchamacallits, opto driver boards, etc. But let's turn it on. Actually, I should also check my batteries. I think it's been a long time since I've checked the batteries. They're okay. I want to be the last person in the world to have a Twilight Zone that has 0 mods on it. 0. Not even in Ramtron. We're still gonna run batteries. I'm already breaking the rules by putting LEDs in it. Let's see. So we can test some things for giggles. You can hear the magnets when they fire. kind of hear it. The right side magnet doesn't work. Okay, just for the sake of doing this on camera, because we will probably learn something together, let's look at a manual and let's figure out where the power, etc. comes from for the right side magnet. This is not the most efficient or the best way to actually figure this out, but it will be fun as a learning experience. I guess to me the easiest way is to just jump in and start poking around. You know, we look for what color the wire is. We try to see if there's any, power. We check the fuse, figure out where the fuse is coming from. But let's try to do this in a manual because I feel like that will help people. Here's what you get in a manual from an old WPC game. This still has all of the original stuff in it. Let's just pull it all out. The first couple games, here's some original Mylar half circles. The first couple WPC games, right? You know, if you had a fleet of Williams games back in the day, they all had the same hardware. You didn't need schematics, right? Because your Millionaire is going to have the same thing as an F-14 for the most part. So you just kind of you'll make it work. How do I do this? I could put this here. And I could put this here, and we could put this on top of my toolbox, maybe. Is that going to give people sickness? Probably. Audio listeners don't care. But the first couple WPC games came with schematics, a full manual of just schematics, which is really neat, and it's really handy because it goes into everything, every single way that whatever you can imagine is wired, which is something that's deeper than they ever did on System 11. So most of your early Williams games will come with this. Most of your Williams games, will have schematics, but very basic things, right? This is your flipper circuit diagram where everything regarding the flippers comes and goes to, but it doesn't give you a component layout, which can be useful when you're doing big repairs. So these early games would come with your game manual, your schematic manual. You'll get your operator's notebook, the small manual. This thing kind of tells you, basic like where are all the lamps, where are all the switches, the basic playfield parts, which is handy. It's a quick reference, right? Because this manual is hundreds of pages long. This is not. So a lot of the quick reference stuff is in here. Williams also was really good about putting the important stuff like on the front cover, right? We've got our list of solenoids and flashers, and went down to, just in case you've never seen this before, our out hole. Solenoid number 8 is the out hole. It's on the high power side, so it uses the higher power. Like I was saying, there's two different, they power lower power flippers or solenoids and higher power solenoids separately. Anyways, it's on the high power side. The connection is at J130 and it is pin 9. So, oh crap, you can't see that. Is that going to focus? Emoto's usually in here like focusing and making it all work. Anyways, it gives you a good layout. A transistor is Q70. It's useful. But what's the drive wire? It's a brown and black, and it's a AE261200. It gives you all this good pertinent information really quick. The back covers usually always would have your switch and lamp matrices on them. So those are always the places I like to look for said information. The quick lookup, if you would, in the manuals. And I'm going to stress this, like if you have a game and you plan on keeping it, get a dang manual. Using your phone and using whatever PDF you can find online is just it's not effective. Being able to hold a real manual is so nice. We've got some old pricing cards. We've got our Williams I bought this game, send us your information card. Then there's some more of the interesting stuff from the earlier games. This came in the goodie bag with the game, kind of showing you how to adjust the flippers and get the right amount of free play with the bushing. We've talked about that a few times. I like the first line on this a lot, though. Keep that great Williams flipper play on your game. Whenever you adjust the flipper mechanism, use the flipper shaft end play spacing gauge to ensure that the flipper shaft end play is correct. And we include one of these with every single one of our flipper rebuild kits for Williams stuff. So you probably have one. I have the original Williams one in that game, which is kind of funny. Also, here's another good point. Manuals are never definite. There's always a mistake. A lot of manuals will they would have sent schematic amendments. That there's a lot of mistakes in manuals. I mean, shucks, the Twilight Zone manual actually calls for the incorrect flipper cranks and coil stops into this book, but the actual bill of material that Williams had said to use the more modern stuff. Thank you for buying another fine Bally pinball. Yeah, no problem. So yeah, we've got a couple schematic. I guess we should look at these. What are in these? It's usually just like one really nuanced dumb thing, but it made some guy out there trying to fix something really mad at one point. So they had to send these out to operators. Oh, dot matrix display driver board. God, that thing is confusing. Anyways, yeah, some games will come with these. I find them neat, so I always save all this stuff. Oh, good old issues of... You should subscribe to StarTech Journal. So before the advent of Twitch and the internet and people wanting to share information, this was how you got information on games and fixing them and new techniques and what's coming out in the industry. StarTech Journal is, I think it's still, maybe it's not in production anymore, but it was a magazine of operators and repair people. You know, hey, I found this. This is a good way to fix it, and then they would publish it. They're really, really, really fun to find. I try to collect a lot of these things whenever I go to swap meets. They're really neat. Coin-op service manuals, advanced troubleshooting. I need that. Inside power supplies. Hot tips 2, field tech. And bench tech. I should go find those. I don't know if I have those. This one's neat. Twilight Zone was one of the first games to use the HAP. No, not HAP. It's coin controls, right? I don't remember. I think this is a coin controls coin door. This was one of the first games to use a dollar bill validator, a down-stacking dollar bill validator. So this is how you would install your bill validators, how to set them, etc. Kind of neat. And then that's what would come with the game in your manuals bin. There's also, every game would come with a goodie bag. So they would come with like an extra pinball, an extra flipper crank, a couple fuses, some light bulbs, flashers, etc. And I think I have that inside the game as well, which is kind of neat. Okay, sorry. Now I gotta read the chat because I've been talking for way too long. I see lots of LOLing. I feel like I'm missing out. Love Lethal Weapon 3, hate Mel Gibson. Yeah, in the same boat. God, I know Maverick has the biggest Mel Gibson. It's like, I like Baywatch because it's got gigantic Hasselhoff, but Colin asked a question. Now I need to read it, so it's going to be quiet. 1 second. So what I would recommend, Colin, is when you're doing that kind of stuff, just replace every transistor in the circuit. I think on those PPB boards there were 3 transistors, right? You've got like the 2N4401, the pre-drive transistor, then you've got the tip 102, and then the tip 36. Just shotgun it, and that can fix a lot of those issues. But if that's not helpful, we'll talk about that later. Which magnet is the issue? I think it's the magnet on the... Oh, that was weird. The magnet on the upper right on the mini playfield. Wait, Streamlabs is being weird. I can't get anything to work. Give me a second. How do I unfreeze the chat? What did I do? Colin, you broke the chat. What happened? Goodness. I feel like I should know how to do this stuff better. Maybe I hit enter? No? Okay, yeah, sorry. I think it's not the chat per se, it's just my computer, like the little integration with the chat is frozen. Chat paused due to scroll. Okay, so now I'm going to try to figure out how to pull the chat up elsewhere. Give me a second. Wow, I'm a professional. Wait, don't I have a Restream chat application? Yes, okay, but it probably won't pull up everything before. So if anything interesting was said, say it again. Everything's interesting. Everything you guys say is amazing, so. Yeah, I have no idea what's going on, but I can see M. Kunzelman's new message here. I know, I'm trying to scroll down. Why? What the heck happened? Guys, I seriously know how to scroll. I'm just having some issues right here. With I think oh! Wait. Okay, Obi-Wan Kenobi just popped up. There we go. Oh, good. It just locked up for a second. Okay. Yeah. Trying to find the original stuff for all your games. Pin Daddy, yes. I always like it too. I like having flyers and stuff because I'm a nerd. But it's just fun. My touchpad is fine, Steve. You're just a hater. You just have a fancy Mac. They probably have a patent on smooth scrolling, so they're evil. Yeah, no, you gotta have a paper manual. It's really handy. So let's take a look. We can figure out the way that the juice runs for this magnet. I just need to figure out where it is in said book. Solenoid wiring. Okay, so the what time is it? It's almost time for Thirsty Thursday too. So let me see if I can find it really quick before I give it to y'all. Okay, so let's take a look at this manual, and then I'm gonna go get my beer and we'll open up this discussion. Maybe we'll continue the bidet discussion. I kid. So we've got, this is our 50 volt device schematic. It very ultra simplified, right? The right side mini playfield magnet is solenoid number 26. It is driven by a violet and white wire from J109 on the driver board, and it is run on 50 volts DC. It runs into said solenoid or magnet, right? A magnet is a solenoid. And then the signal that runs, the path to ground, is a blue and red wire that comes out of J124. So let's grab this information here. It's the violet-white string. What else is run on violet-white? So if we had something weird going on, the clock forward signal, violet-white, but that's different. So violet-white, the left ramp diverter also seems to use that violet-white. If that's dead, we very possibly have a broken wire or a blown out fuse. Let's see
the fuse list here really quick. This is overcomplicating it, really. It's like the easier way to fix it is just get in there and start poking stuff until you find the wrong thing. But that takes experience, and sometimes like really looking at the manuals is helpful, right? And here is a generic schematic for a high-powered solenoid, which would be like one of our 50 volters, right? So we have power, which is fused. It is rectified, and it comes out somewhere, right? This would represent the coil, and most coils always have voltage at them. They're looking for a path to ground, which will power them, which happens here, and that's why this is a lot more complicated. A high-powered solenoid is driven with a tip 36, so we've got a few stages, right? We've got a 2N5401, which is what you would call like a pre-drive transistor. That thing turns on and powers up. This is ultra simplified. It powers up a tip 102, which then powers up a tip 36, which will drive your high-powered solenoid. So our problem, if this was the magnet, our problem exists here, somewhere, with one of these components. I always try to search the easiest thing first, right? If this fuse is blown, that's the simplest thing, right? Or whatever fuse it could be. This is AC, so this is the AC being fused before it gets rectified into DC. So we probably want to check this fuse. Heck, if that fuse isn't blown, we would just look at that. It's really easy to check. We want to make sure that the wire hasn't fallen out of one of the crappy IDC plugs, right? But always looking for the simplest thing first, because generally it is a simpler problem than not. But more often than not, it is a simpler problem than not. So we can take a look at that, and maybe I will, but I was thinking maybe we would open it up to some more chatting. What does that say? Oh, the Twilight Zone song from Golden Earring, written by George Cumans. Sony Music. Da-da-da. Oh, crap. I think I just broke the fourth wall. We're not supposed to do that. You can't see the Pelican case box that this camera and microphone are sitting on, or my baby Pac-Man marquee sitting behind me.
Everyone's talking about being fancy. Now I want to see what people are talking about. Kyle ripping train. What did I do? Mac people are fancy. They are fancy. Pin Daddy. Yeah. Steve and I can fix that. We take those out of the manual, and if the manual doesn't tell us that was in there, then that's not in there. That's why it's not in there. How do you test Bally IDC bulb sockets? You don't. Those actually usually don't go bad unless they crumble. You can see my fancy computer now. Yep, this is a fancy Razer. Here, you guys get to see yourself. It's a Razer Blade, I think they call them. It's a nice computer. It's powerful enough to run this, and that is why we have it. I also got to play RimWorld while I was on the airplane. Steve is not fancy. I would disagree. I don't know, Obi Drunk Kenobi. Why is that? Is that a funny, odd licensing thing that I have no idea about? I'm gonna look really quick at that fuse, just to giggle and see if we find a blown fuse. Fuses can blow. That's something also I'm trying to also learn and reteach myself. That fuses absolutely can just explode. They get old and they can fail. They don't need a reason to fail. So that being said, this is also a handy set of pages in the WPC manuals, like the layout of what each of the plugs do and what they run to. Get familiar with your manual. That's one way to kind of learn and memorize these things a little better too. It's always just a fuse. Yeah, I bet Williams couldn't afford the, and that's why they didn't. Be right back.
I am back to participate in Colin Baxter's Thirsty Thursdays. We are drinking out of my Steinkrug. We are drinking some Keller beer, and I am actually going to go pick up my weekly beer order after we are done streaming. Prost. Wow, chat's going really fast. The machine shop I worked in, we would get 1 free fuse change. Yeah, it can happen, man. Did Kyle freeze? No, Kyle just left, but now he's back. I'm gonna figure out what fuse it is. Hold on. We'll take a look. Since now everyone's kind of just memeing, it's just a fuse. And it very well could be, so. What was it? It was the violet. Oh god, I love these drawings. It's just my lost calling. If I was born in an era when I could do this, I would love to draw that kind of stuff. Be a draftsman. But instead I fix pinball machines. That is the hell that I have committed myself to now for too many years. Right mini magnet. Thanks for not telling me what fuse is. You know what? Hell with it. I'm just gonna open it up. It's easier just to poke around and find this stuff instead of using the book. As long as you know where you're supposed to look. The book helps you get there, but poke at things, make sure nothing came unplugged. Flipper power. There's a really crusty looking fuse in there. Solenoids. Unless it's run on a flipper fuse, but it's either going to be F105 or F104. Let me just remember what solenoid they numbered it. Right mini magnet is solenoid 26. Oops. So it's going to be F106. F103 doesn't look blow broke. I don't have my keys, so now I need to go find a key, pop it out. Don't try this at home. And I dropped the key and now it's inside the game. So that fuse isn't coming out right now. But I will give an update to everyone if it's just a fuse. Drafting isn't all that's cracked up to be, trust me on that one. Yeah, I know, but you know. You can always reach out to me and I can try to find time on throughout the day. Sometimes it is very nice to get a question from someone and it breaks up the monotony. But if it's a long question, it's usually better to do it here, but feel free to email me. It's just kyle@marcopinball.com. And also, since the Moto isn't here to constantly remind me that it's not just the Kyle talking show, our free shipping code today, PT-Marlin. P as in Peter, T as in Tower, Marlin. And Prost. Now that I dropped that key, I'm going to go get that dang fuse out now with a screwdriver. Because that's not the right tool to use, but anyway. It's very corroded, which is actually kind of worrisome. Y'all see this like little bit of green fuzz? That's too much light. It might be hard to see. Emoto's so good at focusing. There's a teeny bit of green fuzz on some of these fuses. Trust me, it's there. Let's test this fuse. Always going back to basics. Always test a fuse. This fuse doesn't look blown up. It looks perfectly fine.
But the problem is if it acts like it's a blown fuse, and everything points to a blown fuse, but the fuse doesn't look blown, just test it. It's very common for these slow blow fuses to pop near the caps, and you'd never see where they were broken. It's one of those old man sayings that if it smells like something, it tastes like something, it must be something. That's a good fuse. I have my meter in diode mode. It's making a pleasant beep. I know that's a good fuse. So now we have some more things to check up on, I'd like to do this on the show more professionally, figure out what the problem is and try to teach something, but that'll have to happen another time. None of those fuses look exploded. Nothing looks like it's been yanked out. Gosh, this game is so clean. It makes me so happy. For a game that I never play. That's bad. I should play it more often. Huh. But yeah, I'll look into it. The problem with this room, I thought this room was going to be the perfect pinball room. It just so happens that it's just too narrow for me to be able to take the glass out in this position. And it made me so sad as soon as I tried and it failed. So I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to arrange the games in here and what games I will have in this room. I'm going to start taking a bunch of my games home from our filming studio because I want them at home so I can play them or let them sit in here and just look at them. But I'm trying to figure out the lineup and how I will organize them. So I don't know, man. I think we should make a fancy dot matrix. It could play some cute little tune, play the 1812 Overture or something. Why can't you test a fuse in circuit? It's not accurate. It's a much more accurate test to test it out of circuit. You'll get definitive results. Yeah, there's other avenues that could show some weird state of continuity. Yeah, and C and K's right. You instead of popping it all the way out, you could just pop one end up because that'll take the fuse mostly out of circuit, right? The 8 high power driver board that will be where the J1 connector. I hate pulling fuses. It's intense. If you have the right tools, it's not so intense, but I get your pain. Has anyone ever shattered a fuse when they yanked it out? I hate when that happens. None of these drivers look exploded. I mean, I'm glad at least we have most of the right voltages. I really want to fix it now. It's too late and we are into the timing when we won't be able to finish it and I don't want to move the game around, etc. But maybe if the powers that be allow me, we can do this on camera one day. Or if I fix it anytime soon, I'll let everybody know. I'm just happy to have it home. I haven't played it in so long. I was making sure that connector wasn't bad. Obi, I just went over there to take a look-see and everything looked okay. It's probably a fuse. The goal is to find something like the commonality. If you have 8 solenoids that don't work, each fuse provides juice to 8 solenoids, so there's your common issue. We had a guy call in yesterday. Marco sold this operator a brand new Star Trek. It was one of the, Final Voyage Star Treks or whatever. And guy called and was like, nothing's working. The switches work, but none of the solenoids work. And I looked at all the fuses and they didn't look bad. And what's the commonality there? What is the one thing that could prevent all of that stuff from working? So I was talking to this guy on the phone, and everything he was saying just didn't sound possible, right? And I was like, look, the only thing that I can think of, the only common issue, the common denominator to all of this stuff is the interlock switch. When you open the door, the interlock switch, opens or enters its middle state, you lose all of your solenoid voltage. And he's like, well, I pulled on it and I push it and I close the door and still nothing works. And I was like, oh, that's weird, man. But the one thing, just look at it, right? Just look at it. He lifted up the play field, a wire fell off the interlock switch, and there you go. That was the problem. So I think that's like one of the best troubleshooting things you can find and you can do is to learn those commonalities and what can cause that problem. And like I said, the issue is usually easier than not, or simpler than not. And I think that's where the experience of like looking through some of those manuals comes into play, and like there's just the repetition of fixing also. But read your manual. That's what it comes down to. Just look at your manual, peruse around, and figure out what looks, what's fascinating. What can I learn more about? Open up PinWiki, Google it, like learn something. Use the book to open up your mind. Yeah, the IDC cables are terrible on this game. Or they're all terrible, but this game is in really nice shape. No one's ever gone in there and really, bumped into anything out. So I'm not. It's just a failure somewhere. It's something goofy, and it'll probably be really apparent once I lift the game up. But like I was saying before, to get it out, I need to move F-14 and cock it to the side to pull the glass out, and that's what I'm trying to think. Like what my actual lineup in here might be. I'm thinking if I could get someone strong, and I could move that big gigantic armoire behind me out, get that thing out of here, find someone to take it. I could maybe put 3 games across there, and then put like 2 back to back against this wall, maybe, and then or just block this door. It's a very strange layout in this room. I could just put a bunch of games against that door. We'll see. Then all of you are invited to my house in South Carolina and we can play pinball, so come on down. It's not impossible. You can have broken electronics. It's sad, that's the thing, right? Like, you can't test every single piece of electronic. You batch test, right? When you build a lot of things, you'll batch test. So you'll make like hundreds and you'll just pull one off. Does it work? Okay, maybe hopefully the other ones around it were good. But it happens. It sucks. Good, I'm glad you have manuals. Armoire. Dude, it came with the house. The guy that we bought this house from just did not want to move that dang thing, so now I'm stuck with it. So I need someone really strong, like my coworker Dom, who's not listening, to come over here and help me move it somewhere into another room or whatever. Yeah, that's true too. That's odd that you had the wrong fuses in it. That's kind of disappointing. But that being said, that's kind of an important thing about like getting any new game, right? Like I've mentioned many times before, like just check your fuses. You always want to check fuses. They're probably wrong, and it can save you a lot of pain down the road. So, but yeah, good job. Invite him over for lunch. Yes! He's almost my neighbor now. He only lives a few blocks away, so there's no excuse I can't exploit him for his muscles. Rotten Dog boards. I could talk a lot about Rotten Dog boards, but I don't really want to do that. They are problematic. I think those guys took a few. They took some liberties in redesigning things that didn't need to be redesigned, and then didn't provide any documentation. So it's frustrating. I appreciate some of the people like that we work with to source boards, even though they're not all like perfect, just reproductions. But I appreciate people going to try to make things like original, a little simpler to service. But let's be honest, just the way that electronics are going nowadays, the era of easy serviceability and through-hole electronics are gone. My wife is staring at me. Hi.
Hi.
What are you doing?
Joking.
I was talking with Ben Heck about the new pinball hardware he designed for Spooky, or helped work with the designer. I think he said he did mostly the firmware, but you know, I asked him, it's like, well, are the components through hole? And then Paul thought that was hilarious and started laughing. He's like, that's how you spot the the repair person. It's not, you know, everything's moving to surface mount, and that's fine. It's just we have to adapt and learn how to fix this stuff now. Hi, wife. She would come in here, but she is probably still working. It would be funny to get her to come in here and say something though. I've never used Rotten Dog System 80 CPU. I'm sure it's cool, but man, you know, the really hot one to get is the one, Pascal's, the guy in France. Those things are insane. They're incredible. I don't think I'd ever, I don't have anything to dedicate as much love to one thing that guy's dedicated to Gottlieb solid state electronics. They're incredible. Oh wow, it's almost 5. Yeah. Oh yeah, and the Niwumph stuff. Yeah, I mean that's the Pascal stuff is incredible, and they're very complicated, but they can do so much. He has so many ROMs on there that are redesigns of like taking those really simple, like, you know, very simple games and like adding rules to make them a little bit more complex. We sell them on our website. They're a bit expensive, but it's probably about the same as if you were to pay for them to come from France and pay shipping and exchange rate, etc. So he added ball save. Huh. Hello, Daniel's wife. Are you guys still on holiday, Daniel? You texted me, you messaged me the location where you were on holiday, and I looked at it. I was very jealous. It looks very beautiful. Emoto won't be here next week, so if you tune into this show just to see Emoto, you will probably not see her. And we may or may not be doing this from my house if Spectrum can get their S together to come fix the stuff at our studio, so we'll see. So I'm sorry Emoto's not here. It's just me with a pile of garbage literally behind me. I'm gonna delete this video so Emoto can't see it. It never happened. Do I do this show every day? I wish, but I do not. Spectrum's coming tomorrow. Yeah, that's what they say. We're gonna be there between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. Oh, cool. We'll be there between Monday and Friday. Yeah, okay, whatever. The setup and the firmware side of Pascal stuff is insane. It's really difficult to navigate, but it's really cool. Till next weekend. Lucky man. I want to go on a holiday. You don't want to see me with a wig. Y'all don't remember what I looked like with long hair? That was terrible. Okay. Since we are running down, I am going to find who is streaming. Okay, hold on. Oh, my friend Bruce is playing Power Wash Simulator. I feel like that's what we should be watching.
Yeah, this whole...
Welcome to Sonic. May I take your order?
And
One crave cheeseburger.
I think we're gonna switch over to Mystery Pinball Theater 3000. We gotta watch Manu.
Crepe sauce.
Almost ready on the burger.
One Sonic crepe cheeseburger.
Manu's playing Mandalorian at my favorite arcade. One of my favorite arcades in California. Freehold Watch. Sorry, I'm trying to get the chat to come back up.
That was...
So yeah, thanks for the
All right, I'll
stream.
fix that
no
later.
problem. Thanks
I know
for
what
joining
that
and
was
watching
epic.
our
Well, we have Mary here.
crammed
You guys can
together
hear me, right?
last
And we
minute.
have,
I set this up in 20 minutes stream.
We have Mandalorian. Who's that?
You guys rule.
Good brief. What's up? So we got Jerry Gage, Jedi McMuffin pinged the net. Terry Red. What up, Terry?
Wait, hold on.
Jedi
Steve is saying
McMuffin
to
says
mute my
don't suck.
computer. It is muted. Oh crap. Oh crap. Oh. Okay, that's a really funny in between. I had my. So the way that we get Emoto's sound to come through on our stream from her Zoom is just capturing what my computer is playing. So I had I turned on Twitch to see like if what Manu was doing, and I muted my speakers. Like, I'm intelligent. I'll mute my speakers so the microphone doesn't pick it up. But you guys got to hear all of what was going on. I'm sorry. I'm gonna raid now because I've failed so many times. Uh-oh. The chat's broken again. Can I do it from Restream? I feel dumb now. It's like I don't know what I'm doing. I pretty much don't know what I'm doing. Okay, you guys enjoy. What are you doing? Get out of here. Stop. No, you're not supposed to see this, Emoto. Go back to work. Goodbye. I'm trying to raid. I don't know if it's working. There it goes. Okay, I think now we're going. Okay, goodbye. And raid.
Right angle to get all the way up there.
Marco Pinball is raiding us with 21 people. Marco Pinball, thank you so much for the raid.
Thank you.